Kimi Antonelli hasn't finished his F1 Fantasy's top scorer in 3 straight races, and now we're heading to Spa, which is the circuit he struggled more than any other in 2025. Is this finally the week to move the 2x boost, or do we keep the faith?
Enough with myself and Adam waffling on. We're heading to Belgium.
The final push of the first half starts now. Let's start with the biggest decision ahead of Spa. One stat that has us questioning Kimi is that we've had 4 different top-scoring drivers over the last 4 races. It was Charles Leclerc at Silverstone, Max Verstappen in Austria, Lewis Hamilton in Barcelona, and all the way back in Monaco since the last time that Kimi led all drivers in F1 Fantasy scoring. Terry, a lot of teams are tempted to move away from Antonelli, especially because of how much he struggled at this circuit last year. How much of his struggles at Spa were because he was a rookie on a wet circuit versus Mercedes just not having the package that they have today?
I'm really torn with Kimi because in 2026 we've seen some really mature performances, but we've also seen glimpses of kind of when Kimi loses his cool a little bit and is prone to some mistakes. But I'm also a little bit swayed the other way because I don't think a lot of Kimi's mistakes and a lot of his problems are actually from driver error. There's the Mercedes reliability. There's obviously what happened at Silverstone, which was just a pure freak accident when he caught that curb. So I'm still in the camp where I think that Kimi and Mercedes are a very different proposition in 2026 as we head to Spa, to be honest.
I completely agree. It feels like the gap might be closing between Kimi and the rest of the field, but I don't think that's really happening just yet. You can see Mercedes have started on pole in all 4 of these races, and Antonelli set the fastest lap in 3 of them. So the pace hasn't disappeared, they just lost points, like Terry said, to reliability and a badly timed Barcelona VSC. That's why I'm sticking with Antonelli as my top fantasy driver heading into the weekend. And I'm not the only one. The sportsbooks agree too. Vegas has Antonelli as the favorite to win on Sunday, but the gap is getting thinner. George Russell and both Ferraris are right behind him, which tells me that Hamilton and Leclerc's recent form is for real. Terry, which team do you think this circuit favors more, Mercedes or Ferrari?
On paper, Ferrari aren't doing what they should be doing. And what I mean by that is all of the talk going into Silverstone was how we're going to see Ferrari struggle, how we're going to see that turbo not be able to spool as much, how we're going to see that power deficit really come to the front. We didn't see that in Silverstone, and we're not seeing it in the simulations either. All of the simulations for Ferrari seem to be wrong. Now, they've had this engine upgrade, but I don't think it's all to do with that. I feel they've got to grips with the car. They understand it a lot better. They clearly found something in the redeployment of that battery and that engine, and they are showing different signs of what we are expecting. So for me, I would say that with 5 straight mode that got confirmed earlier, it's going to be a heavily super clipping. It's going to be a heavy engine dependent track. We're going to see the team struggle with it, so that should favour Mercedes and Mercedes powertrain cars, admittedly. But I do think that what I see from Ferrari during free practice might just decide what I do because they're not to be written off, despite what the book is saying. And I can see those odds definitely moving as the weekend goes further on.
Well, thankfully, we have 3 free practices to watch and see how everyone's looking in the early part of the weekend. And as we saw in Silverstone, even though Kimi was the fastest at the start of the weekend, just a little bit of bad luck could completely flip the script.
And always, a quick reminder from us, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe or that like button because we really want to be able to deliver you the best fantasy content that you can get.
And consider becoming a member of our channel, where you can get videos like this before anyone else. And we just dropped a new one to talk about the latest rumors on Bahrain re-entering the Formula One calendar. We want to welcome our newest members, Phil Francis, Mexis15, Greg Bonert, Gezelig K, and Amy CGP.
And also, don't forget, you can be part of our feature league, which you just got 25,000 of you joining it. So that is an absolutely phenomenal achievement and a massive thank you from all of us to all of you for supporting the channel.
Let's shift from driver picks to constructor strategy. In F1 Fantasy, the top constructors are usually separated by just a few points, so pit stop scoring often becomes the difference. Here's where we stand through the first 9 races. Mercedes lead the pit stop standings with 72 fantasy points already this season. McLaren and Ferrari are essentially even, while Racing Bulls continue to dominate the Tier B constructors in this category. So this is another reason why Mercedes are the top constructor in the game. They already have 2 elite drivers, and they're consistently adding pit stop points on top of that. Ferrari and McLaren are so close, we should be picking a second constructor based on outright pace, since neither really have an advantage in the pits. But Red Bull, on the other hand, they've got 2 problems. They've lost the pit stop edge they built their reputation on over the last few seasons, And until they solve whatever's happening with that rear wing, I'm not paying Tier A prices for them. Terry, could the Macarena wing be the culprit for Max's issues lately?
Not entirely sure because Ferrari haven't had the same problem, as we know, and McLaren have held off bringing it to a track. They might be debuting, obviously Belgium. They've been talking about it, and Isaac Hadjar doesn't seem to have the same problem as what Max Verstappen has. But then there is a talk that he's running a slightly different spec. He's running the older one, and Max is on a new rear wing spec. So it could be that something in the new rear wing is causing some problems. And what I would say is worth to keep an eye on and see if Max reverts back to the old Macarena wing or whether or not he perseveres with the one he's got. But something's not quite right with that car in terms of the feeling Max is getting, if nothing else. So whatever's causing it, it's clearly not something that Max is happy about, and they'll be making some use to change it. So I'm looking to see if they just switch back to the old one, which Isaac's been using. I think that's the most likely scenario in this case currently.
And I've got to see Max feeling comfortable in that RB22 before I can rely on Red Bull, no matter how good they look on Friday. And so, one of the ways we can build 4A lineups, as we've been trying to do so much in recent weeks, is finding value on the price floor. After the British Grand Prix, Lance Stroll joined Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hulkenberg at $3 million. Aston Martin are supposed to bring upgrades for Hungary. Terry, what are you hearing about that package, and could it change the fantasy picture after the summer break?
I'm hearing two sorts. So fans are really excited because Aston Martin have been very open. It's a brand new car, brand new chassis. It's bringing everything almost new. So a lot of talk is this is going to be the step up that Aston Martin have been talking about. Pedro De La Rosa played it very much down last weekend. He was talking about how it's still a developmental car, how it's still learning the 2026 regulations. The engine isn't due until Zandvoort, so the new engine that Honda have promised isn't due for another couple of races anyway. So I think it would be a case of holding off. I feel that reliability-wise, they seem to have got a lot better in terms of finishing the races and that side of things, which obviously when we started in Australia, they were really poor at even just getting race distance. So they fixed those parts for it. So for me now, it's a case of where they go from here. But they're effectively starting again, which puts them about 6 months behind everybody else. So the thing in Formula One is it never stands still. So whilst the team may come with lots of gains, the pack around them has been moving and moving forward at the same time. So it's never a linear sort of comparison you're making. You're continually chasing a moving target, which makes upgrades really difficult to predict before we actually see them on the track and on the car.
For me, the number one thing is going to be, can they improve the reliability of that car? Double finish in Silverstone last time out. Fernando Alonso has finished the last two races in a row, so hopefully they can continue that trend with this upgrade package.
Let's not forget that Fernando actually won the Lego car championship as well. So if needs be, they can always take that engine out, can't they?
The momentum's building. We also have our first promotion to Tier A coming up this weekend. Alpine are expected to reach 18.5 million, so for anyone chasing Tier B price gains, I'd pivot over to Racing Bulls, who are $6.2 million cheaper and lead all assets in the game with a 2.68 points per million value. Moving on to price gain targets, that Alpine price rise is almost guaranteed since they need -9 points or more to gain zero point 0.6 million, and that's doable even with a Grand Prix DNF. All the constructors in Tier A are on track for another price increase, so cost cap growth shouldn't be the deciding factor this week. The constructor picture is pretty straightforward, but the drivers are where things start to get interesting. All of the top drivers need 20 or more points to gain zero point 0.3 million. Antonelli needs 33 points for a max price gain, and normally that sounds high, but he's hit that number in every race he's finished without reliability issues. So while I trust Kimi, this might be a case for holding off on 4A lineups since those Tier B drivers should gain more value this weekend. Terry, the biggest story in Tier B is Franco Colapinto. He just scored a career high 27 fantasy points and now has one of the easiest price gain targets in the game. How much of Colapinto's improvements this season is him building confidence versus Alpine just switching to the Mercedes power unit?
I think it's a combination of both. We've got Franco has had a whole preseason. He's had all that time with the team to get used to the team, used to his crew, used to what's coming. He's been involved in the development of that car. So even though that Mercedes engine is new to obviously both himself and Pierre, they would have been tested in the simulator last year. They would have been doing the runs on it. Franco's been a part of that along with Pierre. So it's been really great to see that step up that when he burst onto the scene, we saw that raw talent with Williams, and then it kind of filtered off into these situations where he lost a lot of points, he crashed, and there was some doubts over it. And then, of course, last season it was continuing. Alpine have tried to sort of, steady the ship by giving him a longer term contract, being very open about how long they want to be in the car for, in hope that that's calmed him down a bit. And I think, like anything, we've seen it with Kimi in his second season, but we're seeing drivers, as they get used to tracks, as they get used to racing, they are maturing at a rate where actually you can start relying on them a lot more than what you may have been able to after just one season. I think sometimes we're a little bit harsh on the rookies. It takes a lot of time to make the step up from F2 into F1 and then to take that on to actually being able to compete in Formula One as well. It's not just a case of jumping in the car and off you go.
It's all coming together right for Franco right now. He needs just one fantasy point to gain point 0.6 million, and he's looking to extend the streak for the most Grand Prix without a retirement, which dates all the way back to Abu Dhabi 2024. Here are our buy and sell rankings for the Belgian Grand Prix. In Tier A, nothing changes for me. Mercedes and Ferrari remain the two constructors to own, and Kimi Antonelli is still my number one driver. We'll still have 3 free practice sessions to watch, but the global top 500 were almost perfectly split between Antonelli and Hamilton for the British Grand Prix. Terry, are you hearing that any teams could bring upgrades to Spa that could change the picture between now and qualifying?
I'm hearing some upgrades, but I'm not quite sure how much they're going to change it, if I'm honest. I think a lot of teams are holding off towards Hungary in the summer break anyway. I think we just need to wait for that list to come out. There's some teams which are just desperately crying out for performance. McLaren springs to mind. I've seen nothing at all that gives me any confidence to pick McLaren in terms of price, in terms of value, what they bring. They seem to be good in practice, kilter off in the actual races. We're not seeing anything on paper where you'd pin your hopes on a McLaren resurgence like we saw a couple of seasons ago with the Miami upgrades they've had. They clearly struggle with the engine and with 2026 race. So I would say those are in a really big question mark. And then towards the back end of the grid, Williams are the team talked about the most as a team which could potentially make a leap with all the upgrades they're bringing. But again, we're not seeing enough in performance to make me think that they've got anything seriously as the package. But Audi just are there, aren't they, with reliability? Still the question mark.
It's an interesting case that some of these Mercedes powered cars are doing so much better than others. So until they start bringing in those big upgrades, we're going to keep McLaren and Williams all in the sell category. Going back to the 2x boost, here's the stat that surprised me the most from Silverstone. There were 11 teams in the global top 500 who put their 2x boost on Liam Lawson. Lawson and Arvid Lindblad have been terrific this year, so there must have drivers for me this weekend, and I don't quite have the stomach to give them the 2x boost. Terry, I've been running Gabriel Bortoleto over Nico Hulkenberg, and it's worked out perfectly so far, but it feels like I'm tempting fate. What do we know about Hulkenberg's latest reliability issue?
They've not gone into any details over what it is, but I think for me, we keep talking about Audi as a team where it always feels like one of them can finish the race, doesn't it? And it's almost a coin toss between which one you get. Hulkenberg's had those sort of bad luck with that kill switch we talked about a couple of races ago. And I think for me, it's still a big question mark over if you've got one in your team, I feel you're going to get lucky is probably the best way to describe it. I don't think there's any sort of science or strategy behind having one of them. I think almost every team is going to need one of them in there. I think it's just a case of which one you go with and kind of cross your fingers and pray it's the one that finishes the race.
As we close out the first half, the formula for success lately has pretty much been run at least one elite driver that doesn't have any engine issues, build enough budget for Hadjar and both racing bulls, and run the Audi that finishes the race. So it's been a little bit of strategy and a little bit of good luck too. For chips, there's only one I'd consider for Spa, and that's no negative, because we see rain almost every year at this circuit. But last year, I finally used no negative at Spa on a sprint weekend, and race control delayed the start for 80 minutes until the rain stopped, so it's not always a sure thing.
The only other thing I'll consider as well is this is the longest track that these new engines are going to be put under demands of. They're at the end of their life cycles in terms of we're getting to the halfway point of the season, so they've been used quite a lot. If they're going to start to blow, I reckon this is a weekend where we might just see that engine reliability just absolutely push to the absolute maximum. We know it's a long track. We know it's got a lot of engine demands on it. We know that these engines have been used a lot and they've got a lot of race miles. So for me, I'm going to be keeping on that one as well. And that might make me play a no negative chip.
Let's put it all together. Here are the top F1 fantasy lineups for the Belgian Grand Prix. This lineup comes down to 3 ideas. Trust Antonelli, double up on Racing Bulls, and for me, keep investing in Gabriel Bortoleto. Antonelli keeps the 2x boost, and sure, he had issues in Spa last season, but Mercedes still have the fastest package, and even when Antonelli has struggled this season, he still has excellent pace, so I'm going to trust him. And here's why Hadjar is still in my top lineups. Since Monaco, he's outscored Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and both McLarens in F1 Fantasy, despite costing just 13.3 million. So it's like having a 4A lineup already. And then around them, I'm loading up on Racing Bulls. Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad have both finished in the top 10 in 4 straight Grand Prix, so Racing Bulls are clearly one of the top 5 constructors. And Bortoletto's gained value in 5 straight races. Sure, Nico Hulkenberg's cheaper, but he hasn't outscored his teammate in F1 Fantasy since Japan. So if you're picking an Audi, I think Bortoletto is worth that extra 3.6 million. Terry, before we lock in our lineups, what's the one thing you'll be watching for in Friday practice?
I think any resurgence in terms of upgrades, and then also what the racing bulls do around here, that Ford and that Red Bull powertrain engine looks really strong. So for me, I can feel another good weekend. I think they've been, for me, the team of the season in terms of the midfield and how they've moved up. It reminds me of what we saw Williams last year getting into the mix. They've made a complete step up. They understand that engine. They understand what that car's doing. They're on the right trajectory. So for me, I'm going to keep on their performance, and I think they're becoming almost like a sure lock-in for me.
With everyone's scores so close, those midfield battles are going to make a huge difference. This team costs 119.5 million, but not everyone can afford that. So let's review a cheaper version that fits more budgets. This team has all the same benefits of Antonelli, the Racing Bulls, and Bortoletto, but replaces Hadjar with Hulkenberg, who's the best of the $3 million price floor drivers. And if you'd rather have a team in the middle with a little bit more cost cap upside, replace Hulkenberg with Franco Colapinto for a team that costs 116.6 million, and that includes 4 out of the 5 lowest price gain targets in Tier B. So you'll be up above 120 in no time.
And remember, we're going to be here to answer all of your questions on Saturday, right before qualifying, 9 a.m. Eastern Time and 2 p.m. UK time. Well, we might not both be here because I'm on my way back from Disney, so it might just be Adam.
I'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching.